who's doing that. Has anybody had good luck with people who don't show? I mean, when they don't call, I mean, just that is the biggest bugaboo, because we lose tutors, when that happens. It only has to happen once or twice, and then they don't continue coming. Does anybody have any suggestions as to how they've?
Yeah, that was what we are going to talk about after Maureen gives her presentation. Let's start with what Deborah was asking. As far as, are you talking about students that don't call to cancel and just don't show?
Yes. And I think the important thing is to have a personal relationship, even if you're at a center. Make sure that your students know you're a volunteer, you're giving up your time, impress that on them, and that if they don't show, if they can't come, give them your cell phone number, not the site director's telephone number, because that person may or may not be available. So to have a personal relationship with your students. And then we had one of the best tutors we've ever had, was from Scotland, and she would send a summary of what they've learned after every class, and then tell them about their next time coming. So, just maybe another weekly email between you and your students, especially if you have more than one. If you only have one student, that's essential, because then you really are. At least at a center, the advantage is that you usually have 6 or 7 at least who show up. But when that happens, that is the most demotivating thing for tutors. And you are all gold as far as the giving of your time and talents. And no matter whether you want to focus on conversation or sentence structure, conversation is the biggest need. That is the biggest thing for adapting, whether it's, simulating a job interview. I had a great success this last week with just goals and our traditional SMART, the specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goals. And it just made, just asking them that and giving them feedback was so edifying for me as a tutor and for our students. So just to let you know that those are the things that can avoid frustration. But if you have other hints or tips to share, I would be most appreciative.
And that circles back around to ground rules. And so my story about starting out, and my committee members have heard this story. I have an Afghan student. She's a refugee and she has a baby, and she's got a lot of post-traumatic stress. Obviously, they had to leave overnight, and so I give her a lot of leeway. But one of the first times we were supposed to meet, she texted me and said, I am going to be talking to a therapist. This is 10 minutes before we were supposed to meet, and I do Zoom. And so I texted her back. She said, can you meet later this afternoon? So, we schedule our whole days around it. Like Deborah said, we're volunteers and it's our time. So I said, of course, talking to a therapist is more important. Let's do it 3 o'clock this afternoon. So that afternoon, when we met, I come to find out that it wasn't her therapist that she was going to speak to. There was an Afghan therapist that has a radio show, kind of like a Dr. Phil of Afghanistan, very famous there. And she wanted to call in to speak to him. So that made me think about what I needed from her. And what I told her is, if she knows that she's not going to be able to do the class, I need 24 hours notice. Texting, calling, whatever. The other thing is she has a baby, the baby gets sick, there's emergencies. And I told her I understand when there's emergencies and she can't make it, but that she needs to let me know when she knows. And the other thing is that when Lainey sent me the list of things that that was in a contract many years ago, it said try to keep the children out of it because it's a distraction. You can imagine somebody with a baby and having to change them and breastfeed them and everything. So I've had to be a little bit more lenient with that part of it. And, but she really wants the tutoring and she wants to try. So I guess what I'm saying is be flexible, but certain things be firm about, because we do schedule our whole day around it.
Sheila, that's a wonderful statement. I want to also point out that in the case of the Afghani, I have a young woman who's a mother. Her youngest is in first grade. And I meet with 4 mothers, and they are forming such a group. And I do know that Gail Taylor has got a group of young mothers. She does Zoom exclusively with those people. But at Toberman, does this woman drive? Because when they don't drive, that is so limiting, so that makes in-person tutoring almost impossible unless she can get to a place. Do you know if she drives or not?
My person does not drive. No.
Oh, okay. Okay. So she's only available for online tutoring. I would probably recommend that she call in. There are 2 or 3 other tutors, and I will send you information offline so we can take this offline. But because what they're doing is they're forming a personal support group. And that's in some ways almost like therapy. I think better than therapy. And you're offering lots of little chances to connect because they're starving for human connection. And I think that's a lot of what we do. So anyway, I'll send that information. But if any of you have a young mothers group or so that these people can mutually share, please send that to Sheila. And that information about when you're available and how you get on. That would be great. Thank you. I'll get off now.